Thank you for rejoining us like you usually do on Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock. At that time, we bring you the Our Town program right here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. My name is Darren Swenson. I am the host of the show. We have a 5-guest, 4-interview program for you on the show this morning. We'll have a check-in with Waukon City Manager Gary Boden a little later on in the show. We'll talk to Tim Beckman and Ben Hillyer from the Howard County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office in Howard County trying to establish a canine program. We'll talk with Clayton Burke from the Iowa DOT. You've seen probably some action taking place once again on the Lansing Bridge project. They had to put a halt to that project due to the high water on the Mississippi River recently, but Mother Nature is allowing work to commence once again. But starting tonight in Decorah, it's Nordic Fest. Annual celebration gets underway tonight with the opening ceremonies at around 6:45, 7 o'clock in there in front of the courthouse square. Ariana Cervantes is the president of Nordic Fest, and she will be the first interview on this morning's edition of Our Town. It's brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. You're listening to it on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. The 2024 edition of the Nordic Fest will begin tonight in Decorah, and here to tell us all about it, with the Nordic Fest committee, Ariana Cervantes. And Ariana, the fun all starts tonight. Tell us what we folks that will head to the downtown area can see coming up this evening.
Yeah, so everything really kicks off with our opening ceremonies. That starts at 6:45 in the courthouse square. We'll obviously have all of our partners like the Lauren Singers, Nordic dancers. The VFW will be there presenting. Those that participating in the Bunad show will be there. It's going to be a really great time. Plus, after that, make sure to get downtown, and the food booths will be open. The beverage garden will be open, and there will be music on Water Street.
And also getting recognized tonight, the school recipient and the grand marshal. And tell us about those 2 recipients this year.
Yeah, so the school recipient this year is Jenny Grouse. She has been involved in Nordic Fest for many years in many different ways, whether that's playing with 3 different bands over the years, or helping on the Nordic Fest board, or being a Nordic Fest or a Nordic dancer parent. Our grand marshal this year is Paul Scott. As many of you know, he ran the DecorahNews.com. And is just retired. He's also pushed for a lot of betterment things downtown, which is a really cool thing for his legacy in town.
And looking ahead, coming up Friday, pretty much activities going on from morning till night, and a little bit of stuff going on for everybody, it seems like.
Yeah, we have entertainment and activities for all ages. In the 400 block of Water Street, there's kids activities. Of course, on the 500 block where Vesterheim is the beverage garden that is all inclusive for age. You just have to be 21 to drink the beer.
And then tell us about some of the highlights of the Saturday activities coming up.
Yeah, Saturday is one of the biggest days of the fest. It starts off with the envelope early in the morning. Of course, our grand parade starts at 10:30. Last year, we counted over 12,000 people there. We're really looking forward to that. In addition to the envelope, there's the rock throw and the lutefisk eating contests later in the afternoon. If you choose to participate in those 3 athletic events, you could be the ultimate Norseman.
And of course, a lot of things going on coming up. The fireworks coming up on Saturday night as well. How much time, how much effort, how much work is involved in putting on the fest? How long have you and the board been working together to make sure this weekend is as fun and entertaining as possible for everybody?
We actually have meetings all year round. We do take a break in December, but we start right back up again in August to reflect on the previous year's Nordic Fest, and we immediately begin planning the following month. The board this year has put in so much hard work, and I can't give enough thanks and appreciation to them. They spend countless hours over the entire year really preparing for this. Of course, it ramps up more at the end of June and early July, but this board really puts in a lot of work year round. So thank you to all those folks.
And when you look at the folks that support the Nordic Fest through sponsorships and donation, how good does it feel to have so many people involved in that to make sure this fest stays afloat?
Yeah, I wish I could take the time to thank every single one of our sponsors. We have so many people that are very, very generous. I do want to thank our top three shield level sponsors, Decorah Bank and Trust, Deco, and Hacker Nelson. Those three are our shield level sponsors again this year. Massive thanks to those folks. And again, if I could list every person in the program that's donated, I absolutely would.
And you mentioned the program. How can folks pick up a program?
Yeah, so you can go down to the chamber. This year, the program itself is $5. The buttons are $1 sold separately. So that's something a little bit different than we've done in the past. Otherwise, if you'd just like to look at it and not purchase one, you're welcome to do so by going to our website.
And that website is?
NordicFest.org.
Simple enough. Anything else you want to pass on? Anything else we're missing as long as you got the forum this morning?
Yeah, just check out the food booths, check out all the excitement going on down on Water Street. We'd love to have you join us. We put this on, to bring people to the community, but also to see those community members and just for everyone to have a fun and safe environment.
All right, Ariana, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time. I know you're swamped this time of year trying to get everything going for Nordic Fest and doing the real job as well out there at Hy-Vee. But thanks for taking a few minutes to tell us all about the Nordic Fest. Best of luck coming up this weekend in Decorah. Should, as always, be a fun event.
Thank you so much.
Ariana Cervantes with the Nordic Fest Committee. Nordic Fest starting tonight in Decorah. Getting an update on the Lansing Bridge project with Clayton Burke from the Iowa Department of Transportation. And Clayton, when we talked to you last, the project had come to a halt through nobody's fault except Mother Nature. The river has gone down. Is the crew back on site getting back to work and trying to move the project in the right direction?
Good morning, Darren. Yeah, they are back on site and they are moving their equipment and materials back into place so they can start working on the bridge again. And I guess everybody's excited to be back to work here.
You mentioned they had to move their equipment back into site or onto the site, I should say. What did they have to take off the site when the river started to rise? Pretty much everything?
Yeah. Basically, most of their equipment, they didn't want that to flood and be damaged by the water. They took their office trailers and moved those off the site so that their offices didn't flood. Pretty much everything. The only thing they could leave were a couple pieces of the steel that the bridge will be made out of. The steel, they weren't worried about that floating away. Pretty much everything, like you said, Darren.
When did the process of moving equipment back to the site start? When can the work begin once that equipment is in place?
So the contractor got back to work on moving the equipment in this Monday. So they've been at it for a few days now. They project that it'll take the rest of the week to get everything situated and be prepared to start working on that new bridge again. And then early next week, they anticipate being back out on the river, working off of the barges, getting those in place, and to start working on that pier that's in the middle of the river. When they get out there, they'll start excavating the soil out of those large drilled shafts that we've been talking about, and they'll be back to work.
Was there anything that had been done from a work perspective on the new bridge to this point that got damaged due to the flooding?
No, the work that they've done is very robust. The new bridge is very, it's designed to be very strong and last for a long time. The only, I guess I wouldn't call it damage, but the only drawback from the flooding is that there's some extra material that they have to clean up. So there's some trees that ended up in the cofferdam that they'll have to lift out of the cofferdam. And then everything is covered in a layer of muck and silt. So before they can use some of that steel that was left on site, they're probably going to have to pressure wash it to get all of that nasty river muck off of the materials.
How much time was lost on the project due to the high river over the past month?
So we've lost pretty much most of the month, which has a fairly significant impact on the schedule. We were really pushing to be done with the first portion of the bridge on the Wisconsin side by the end of the year. And so losing a month has really been tough on the schedule.
How much catch-up work do you plan to do between now and, say, when the weather turns in November or December? Or it's Iowa. We might even talk about earlier than that, or we might have 70-degree weather in December. How much catch-up work are you planning to do once you get back to full-fledged work next week?
Yeah, we're certainly hoping for the best and planning for the worst. We're currently talking to the contractor about how we can make up for those days that we've lost here to the flooding, and some of the ways we can do that are working longer days, taking advantage of the full, long summer days that we have right now, and then possibly working weekends, doing anything. We could also bring in multiple crews to work on specific items so that you're getting twice as much done in any given day. But right now we're just discussing what options we have and what we actually need to get back on schedule.
Anything else folks need to know regarding the situation right now, and anything you need to pass on to the public besides hoping that river doesn't rise again?
The only thing I could think of is that we will have those intermittent short-term closures coming up of the bridge again. They will be occurring. We don't have an exact date from the contractor yet, but when the contractor is driving the large casing for those drilled shafts in the middle of the river, that's when we'll be closing the bridge just while they're driving those casings, so that we don't have the extra vibration on the bridge from the traffic, so that they're not interfering with each other.
And that is what you were planning in June before Mother Nature had other ideas, correct?
Exactly. Yep.
All right, Clayton, we appreciate the update of everything going on with the Lansing Bridge. I'm sure we'll have a few more conversations going on this year, but hopefully we can focus on the progress you're making on that new bridge instead of factors that aren't in your control, like Mother Nature. As always, we appreciate the time, and thanks for chatting with us.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Darren.
Clayton Burke with the Iowa DOT on the Lansing Bridge update. Howard County Sheriff's Office is in the process of trying to start a canine program for their law enforcement agency. And here to discuss that is Howard County Sheriff Tim Beckman and Ben Hillyer, a deputy with the Howard County Sheriff's Office. And Tim, we'll start with you. Obviously, there's a lot of process that needs to go through to get a program like this started. When did the discussion start about potentially having a canine program, and what steps logistically do you have to take to get to the point that you're at right now?
Thank you, Darren, for having us on today. So Deputy Ben Hillyer, he approached me maybe a month or two ago about the possibility of looking into getting a canine, and I had to put some thought into it, and Deputy Hillyer put together a bunch of numbers, and I guess he can kind of explain what really went into it.
Yeah, so I started just back in March, and it's always been a lifelong goal for me to be a canine handler in law enforcement. And I spoke to another deputy, and he really helped me out on getting it started. We put a plan together, and we approached him, and just talking to him and showing him that it's going to be it's good benefit for our department, and we just went with it, and it's going very, very well. So.
And obviously, Ben, law enforcement is a calling in and of itself, but what made you want to be a part of a canine unit? What was the reason you wanted to pursue that angle?
So I've grown up with animals. I've grown up with working dogs. I'm in my personal time, I love to hunt with dogs. I still have hunting dogs myself. And I just thought, I think that's the coolest thing. Just seeing other departments utilize that, and seeing all the progress and the benefits that they are able to help officers in the community. And I think it's the coolest thing how dogs can sense different things than we can. And so I wanted to be the guy to do it. So that's kind of how it all, ran with it. So.
And Tim, I'll ask you, obviously, there's probably a lot of ideas that get presented in front of your agency and probably get shown to your desk. How do you take the process from an idea standpoint and take the steps to make it a reality? Because I'd imagine it's one of those things where, yes, the desire and the positives are obvious, but there's a process to play out to make it a reality.
Yeah, this is a very big project that, like you said, it's a process. There's a huge financial burden, and that's why we were asking for the community support. And the community support has been really great so far. And this is going to assist us with helping find missing people, traffic stops to look for narcotics, and Deputy Hillyer will be available if the community project, if there's a community club that wants to see the canine, he will definitely bring it around, bring it to the nursing homes, and whatever people want, they can ask for.
And Ben, you mentioned you've talked to other law enforcement officials that have been part of a canine unit. What have you learned through those conversations to make sure when this program starts in Howard County that it's going to be the best it possibly can to serve the people of your county?
Oh, I could talk all day on that subject. It's just, it comes down to being responsible, being well trained, and that's where the money comes in. Training is a huge part of the costs that we need to be able to utilize that canine properly. That's just kind of what it boils down to, is being able to have a good dog. Just like us humans, we have personality just like other dogs, and we got to be able to have a dog that fits us. And sometimes that does come at a cost. So we want to be able to make that the best tool we can possibly make it.
And I imagine, Tim, not only do you want to raise the money to start this program, you want to raise the money to sustain it and make it a lasting thing and not just a startup thing. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. There's recurring cost every year, whether it's food or vet bills. And we've had people come forward and say that they would take care of some of that already.
And Ben, how much money will it take to get this thing off the ground and keep this thing moving in the right direction?
So we're seeking about $30,000 to get it going, and that's a big upfront cost. The main two things is what we're looking at is training, and the dog, and the outfitting of the vehicle. A lot of people don't realize that or understand that we need to be able to, when the dog's in the car, we need to be able to have sensors. As far, and what I mean by that is when it's on a hot day, there's always air conditioning, and if something goes bad, it's going to alarm you, it's going to notify you. There's just, to make it the best we can, we have to go with that route.
And Tim, this might be as ignorant of a question as you can possibly get, but where does one find a canine police dog? Do you got to go to a certain location for that? Is there like,
Actually, there are
explain it to me.
there are certified kennels actually not far from here. There's
Okay.
one in Rushford, Minnesota, and Forest City, Iowa. And maybe Ben could answer that better, but there are several police canine kennels in the area.
Yep,
Go ahead,
absolutely.
Ben.
Yep. So we're looking at 2 kennels as of right now. I do have some knowledge of Forest City kennels. I know a lot of the local sheriff's office and police departments go through that kennel, and they've had very, very good success. My brother, he's canine handler as well, and he goes through them, and I've heard a lot of great things there. But we are looking at all the opportunities we can to best utilize that dog for our department.
And Ben, I'll ask you again, and this a question out of my own ignorance. What's the difference between a police canine and just a regular dog?
That's another subject. I could talk your ear off all day about that as well. The main things are, the training aspect of it, the amount of money that goes into it, the time spent. It's utilized as a tool, and what I mean by that is that dog has a lot of capabilities, and that trainer is going to be able to get every utilization out of that dog that they possibly can.
And Tim, how can folks get involved to help the Howard County Sheriff's Office achieve their goal of getting this thing started and keeping this thing going?
So if somebody, if an individual or an organization is interested in donating, they can contact the sheriff's office or stop in. They can write a check out. If they live out in the county or even in a different county, we could probably go meet them too if they don't want to send a check in the mail. Or they can also donate, like I said earlier, through food or other assistance. It doesn't have to be monetary.
And would these be tax deductible donations?
Absolutely, they are, yes.
Ben, I'll finish up with you. Anything we're missing? Anything else? You said you could talk all day, so this is probably an open-ended question. But anything we're missing? Anything else you want to point out about getting this program off the ground that folks need to know? As long as you got the forum.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we want people to know that this dog is going to be a benefit to us and the community, and that that's the sole purpose of the dog. We're gonna do what we can, and we're gonna spend the time and money to make that happen. The biggest thing that we look for in the dog, and that's the sole purpose of it, is to be able to make sure people go home safely and efficiently at night. And we just want to be able to express that to the community.
All right. We appreciate Tim and Ben joining us this morning to tell us about the canine program within the Howard County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for the time, gentlemen, and most importantly, thank you for what you do to keep our community safe.
Absolutely. Thank you for reaching out to us, Darren, and hopefully next time I see you, you have a better looking hat on.
Well, I'll let the audience draw their own attention on that end of things. Okay. Appreciate the time nonetheless.
All right. Thank you so much.
It was nice talking to you. Thank you.
Ben Hillyer and Tim Beckman from the Howard County Sheriff's Office discussing potential canine program for Howard County. Having a conversation now with the city manager of Waukon, Gary Boden. And Gary, at the previous council meeting, you passed on the news from the council or to the council that the planned Quick Start development in Waukon is not going to happen. What was the reasons given to you by Quick Trip Company officials that the plans for Waukon just weren't going to be in the cards?
Well, actually, it was very simple. The cost of doing the construction, which is expected to be about $7 to $8 million, wasn't cost effective enough for Quickstar to make the commitment. The size of the site would have only added 2 more gas pumps to what already is in existence in downtown Waukon. Really was, a negligible increase of service in that regard. The store would have been bigger, but the development of the site actually was very costly. The Platson car dealership, which is the plan for them to purchase, was not level. There was too much of a rise between the streets and the site to actually allow for effective development. And as a result, the project just didn't number out. It would have been too much of an investment that didn't see the return for what they actually thought they could do out of the project.
When you have a situation like this, not that you didn't want this project to happen because it was a 3-year process and a lot of work for everybody involved, but does it soften the blow a little bit knowing the fact that other than the site itself, the relationship between the city and a potential developer seemed to be a cordial one?
Oh, absolutely. We were complimented. The realtor for us, or for Quickstar, complimented the city for its cooperation and its assistance and its attempt to try and make the project work. They were also complimentary to Steve Platson, who they were going to try and buy the property from. They actually, I think, had an agreement to purchase subject to an evaluation of the site that turned out to be not so good for Quickstar. These projects come and go. We did put a lot of effort into it. I was doing a lot of financial planning for this project because we would have had to do some other infrastructure improvements for which we would have received a significant donation from Quickstar to make happen. But when all is said and done, they told us that the commitment that they were willing to make to help us relocate a storm sewer, plus getting the ground for free, still wouldn't have made this project profitable. And as a result, they had to back away, and it is what it is. They said that, Waukon was welcoming, and that there's a lot of times when they go into other towns and there would be roadblocks thrown up, but ours was not the case. Ours was just a situation where the site didn't work.
You mentioned the challenges Quickstar would have in developing that site. Does that present challenges to other potential development at that site? Or are you confident that something can go there?
Well, I think we'll be all right. I think that site can redevelop. I know that Steve Platson has a couple of ideas in mind and maybe some contacts. The site, if you think about it, if you look at a gas station site, it's very flat. And this site wasn't. And as a result, gas stations probably won't go there. But I think other development can occur, particularly given the building itself. It could be redeveloped for some other commercial use. It's a wonderful location. And the fact of the matter is that Quickstar is not going to move. They like the site. There's no question about it. They like the site that they're at right now. It's very lucrative for them. They thought that with a larger facility, they could actually make even more money, but it turned out that the site development cost didn't allow that to happen.
We've talked a lot about the issue of housing. I know a week and a half ago, I believe Sarah Snitker headed to a regional roundup in Decorah regarding regional meeting for councils and boards regarding ordinances, enforcement, other topics related to the issue of housing. I know she hasn't had a chance to present that to the council since the previous meeting, but what type of things did you learn at that conference that potentially Waukon can take advantage of?
Well, I attended that conference very briefly.
Okay.
But the fact is that I think what we're doing in Waukon right now is probably classically out of the box for the kinds of sizes of communities, the rural communities in Iowa. We are making tremendous commitment on doing housing development, as evidenced by the fact that we're very hopeful that next month Dexter Quendow will get a grant to help construct 36 apartment units. This is a pretty big deal for us. There's a significant need for apartment housing, particularly for workforce people. And we've set up the site so that if in fact that 36 gets built very quickly, another 36 units can likewise be built with a use of potentially another grant. That kind of activity is not normally found in a rural community in Iowa. We have a significant need for housing, and as a result, it does make sense to make it happen. We also, I expect here in the upcoming weeks, to have approvals set up for the duplex subdivision that's been contemplated on the northwest side of town. It looks like it would be done in 2 phases likewise, but in both cases, the city has owned the property, so that helped. And then the city's also put in the infrastructure to allow for the development of these properties to begin with. These are pretty significant impacts for housing in not just Waukon, but in the county and for that matter, the surrounding region. And I think if anything else, we may very well be a talisman as to how to do it in a rural community.
And you touched on thinking outside the box. How important, when it comes to the issue of housing, is that in a world where probably too many communities and too many areas are thinking of housing in a way that they've always think of housing as compared to adapting to the 2024 climate?
Well, I think in small towns like ours, I mean, realistically, we have not had a privately developed, and I understand it emphasizes this privately developed subdivision in over 30 years. We've had one housing subdivision that, quite frankly, was done through the Waukon Economic Development Corporation, which is kind of a public-private sector partnership, just like the city's entered into with these 2 developments that I've referred to. I think small towns are going to have to realize that if they really want to make housing happen, it's going to have to be a public-private partnership. We have to use very significant types of very sophisticated types of financing mechanisms to do so. In both cases, for us, we're using tax increment financing. In the apartment complex project, we use TIF to build a subdivision, a $2.5 million subdivision. But in that subdivision, which is a mixed-use subdivision, there will be and is already commercial development, which will add to not just our property tax base, but also to our sales tax base. We also have property that we purchased through this subdivision agreement, and with the specific purpose of building the apartments, mainly because we had a significant need. We have a significant need for apartment housing, and that was part of the target for this, is part of the residual of the development as far as the lots are concerned. I don't think without that kind of type of commitment or other grants that you could find, any of this could ever happen. And I think that small towns, and not necessarily cities our size and larger, because I think we already have participated in use of TIF, but smaller towns are going to have to do this if that's how they want to truly see some changes in the composure of their housing stock. And it requires commitment. It requires community support. It requires an understanding from their city councils that these things are required to make it happen. And I think that's a message that is being sent out by the people in this conference, for instance. These things have to happen. To make these things happen, you have to make a local commitment. And in the case of TIF, it's just a diversion of property tax revenue for the development of the site to begin.
And when it comes to these private-public partnerships, from a governmental perspective, where's that happy medium between making sure there's enough investment there for folks to pursue this, but at the same time holding your current property taxpayers as harmless as possible? Is there a happy medium there?
I think so. And I think, quite frankly, we are doing that here. Part of it is an attitude that you have to make investment to make things happen. The classic but-for clause in TIF, but for this kind of investment, the project wouldn't happen, is self-evident. I think the thing to understand too is that with the investment that we're making, it is not an investment of property taxes that are already going to the taxpayer. What's happening is we're taking a portion off the top of the new off the top of what is in the TIF district to help pay for this, but it is a diversion. It is not a commitment of new tax dollars that come out of the existing property tax base. Now, you can make a case that because we're not putting as much tax base into TIF, that the property taxes themselves are a little bit more stressed. But the fact of the matter is that we've been using TIF for 20, 30 years, and the amount of commitment that we're using with TIF is generally been pretty even. In fact, we're seeing some retirement of other TIF districts and TIF debt that is actually lowering our exposure in that regard. And what we're really doing is using TIF to keep even, if you will, with the new development. And as a result, I don't think there's much impact on our taxes.
Couple more matters that were talked about at your last city council meeting. You passed an ordinance changing the rates for service and billing for water service. Explain.
Oh, that's very simple. That's just allows us to use credit cards to help make payments.
Okay. And that's been something that's been in the works for quite some time, correct?
Right.
And also related to water and sewer, tapping a water main regarding and tapping a sewer line in regards to getting those to properties, those prices going up a little bit from what I understand. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and that's just in all candor, as much of this as anything is just a response to inflationary pressures. Some of these things haven't been upsized for upgraded as far as costs are concerned for a while. Quite frankly, I expect that the council will contemplate other increases in our water fees in upcoming months, mainly because we need to build some reserve and some capital development dollars to make repairs to our water system. We've spent a lot of money on our sewer system, obviously with the new treatment plant, but we have an aging water system likewise. And in fact, some cases, our water mains are over 100 years old. And whether it's Waukon or any place else, the cost of replacement or significantly fixing these water mains is going to be an issue for us for the foreseeable future. I'm working on some capital improvement planning right now that looks at the financing of a reconstruction of a street, and about 25% of that cost really is what's underground. People don't recognize sometimes that when we talk about infrastructure, it's not just the street, it's what's underneath.
And when it comes to the way I understand state code, when it comes to the water and the sewer funds, basically they've got to pay for themselves, meaning that the revenue generated for them needs to be put back in the system. It isn't a case of you're taking money from your normal property tax dollars for these systems. Is that is the case, correct?
For all intents and purposes, I think one of the things to understand is that we use all of our revenues, and I say revenues as opposed to taxes, they're user fees. We use all of our revenues for the operations of the water and sewer, sanitary sewer systems, as well as our stormwater utility. There are times when we use some property taxes as it relates to the reconstruction of the street to help pay for that new replacement or installation. We tried not to do that as much as reasonably possible. We've done some projects recently where we spent, and I use this term guardedly, a few $100,000 of tax money that goes actually into the underground. But for all intents and purposes, both of our utilities are running at about $500,000 a year, and all of that money that offsets that cost is coming from the user fees. But like I said before, particularly in the case of water, we're probably going to have to look at rate increases at some point in time. They haven't been, but we have a 2.5% cost of living adjustment that goes in every year, but we haven't had a significant change in our water rate structure probably for 15 or 20 years. And it's catching up with us, just like, you know, we had to do work for sewers. Of course, the sewer increases were dramatic because we had to build a $12.5 million wastewater treatment plant, which was mandated. The increases that perhaps will occur, the increases that perhaps could occur for water are not going to be anywhere near the type of increases that we had for sewer. We're not looking at a $12.5 million improvement in the water systems. We're probably we're looking at a tenth of that cost, maybe at most, at least in the foreseeable future. And foreseeable future means 5 to 10 years.
And when would the council potentially have to deal with an increase like that? Is this something that's going to happen in the near term or 6 months from now? When would that happen?
I think that'll come in context with the discussion about what capital projects we're going to do and when we're going to do them. Whatever increase we do could be phased in. But the council's aware that we need to make some investment here. And quite frankly, our water fund is really just breaking even. We're not getting any more money set aside for capital improvement, and that's of concern. But the $400,000 that we have in reserve right now maybe could take care of you know, a major street project, but that's it. And there's no growth in that revenue source. So we're going to have to look at that and make some deliberate commitments as far as how you want to address the water system. Without these increases, we could use some other revenue sources like local option sales tax, but we're also using that for streets and fire trucks and police vehicles. So we have some limitations here. But I think, again, to realize this is that our water costs have not even been increasing at anywhere near the rate of inflation. So,
okay, one final question for you here. Council passed a ordinance regarding the process and laws and procedures related to the abatement of grass, weeds, and other vegetation in the city. Explain what's going on there.
The mayor's proposal was to increase the size of grass cutting, required grass cutting, from 6 to 8 inches and 12 inches in agricultural situations or non-developed situations. The real change here is that the city effectively is just putting people on notice to this proposal that we'll come in and cut the grass if it's not if it's taller than these ordinance regulations. In the past, we handed out warning notices and things of that sort, saying that we're going to come and do it in the next few days if you don't take care of it. But in this case now, we're just going to go in and do it.
That's what I got in my notebook. Gary, anything else you want to pass on to the public as long as you got the forum?
No, I'm good. I think the thing about what's going on here is that I spent a lot of time doing some financial planning for the capital development, and with Quickstar going off the table, I've had to make some significant readjustments to say the least. But I think that in August, you're going to see some of the output of not just this financial planning for capital development, but also a true discussion about capital projects that'll come up in calendar 25 and calendar 26 and calendar 27.
Gary, appreciate the time and the knowledge as always. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later.
Gary Boden, City Manager of Waukon. Thank you to the 5 individuals who took some time out of their schedule to joining us on Our Town, including Ariana Cervantes from the Nordic Fest Committee. Nordic Fest starting tonight, going through Saturday in Decorah. Clayton Burke from the Iowa DOT updating us on the Lansing Bridge Project. Howard County Sheriff Tim Beckman and Deputy Ben Hillyer telling us about the start of a canine program here in Howard County for the Howard County Sheriff's Office, and Waukon City Manager Gary Boden. Again, it's the summertime. You're in the middle of summer. There's a lot of things going on. Community festivals, things to go, vacations, everything like that. We realize sometimes your schedule is too busy to turn on a radio or a streaming device or a smart speaker at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning. You say, I'd like to hear Our Town, but I'm busy at that time. Here's what we do for you. We put this show on YouTube. You can watch Our Town each and every week. You can head to the Our Town page on YouTube. 725 Our Town program is the best way to search for it. We also put these links up on all of our LA Communications radio stations pages. Another way we do our best to connect with the public here at LA Communications. Thanks to our guests. Thank you to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. And thank you, that's right, you, for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching. Any way you consume this content, we appreciate you doing so. This has been the Our Town program on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.